I tried to.
There you are, George.
Very
Yay.
nice.
Excellent. Perfect. Now we
Thank
have
you.
everybody. Okay, so I'm Denise Cronow, Chair of the FinCom. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Okay. Peter Schaefer,
Here, yes.
Stephen Morey,
Here.
Chris Glowacki,
Here.
George Harrington.
Here.
We're also being joined today by Brian Turbot
Here.
and Ali Penta. Ali, can you say here?
She's on, according to.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to. So
She keeps her, I don't know. She's on the screen, but nothing's coming through.
I'm here. I don't.
Oh, there she is.
thank you, Ali. Thank you. So good afternoon. This open meeting of the FinCom is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of COVID-19 virus. I'm going to summarize this as we've all heard it many times. We are suspending public gatherings, and we do not have to have a publicly accessible physical location, and we're able to do this remotely through Zoom. Yes, the meeting's being recorded and broadcast, and all the attendees are participating by video conference. So for how the meeting ground rules will be, I will introduce each speaker on the agenda, and after they conclude the remarks, and then I'll go down the line of all of you asking if you have any comments. Please remember to mute your phone, and we'll do everything by roll call. So first, may I get an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
By roll, so Peter, all in favor?
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
Chris?
Aye.
George?
Yes.
Denise? Aye. Okay, thank you. So I will now turn it over to Brian to take us through Articles 8 and 15.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just start with, in the beginning, prior to COVID-19, Article 8 had been originally recommended through FinCom deliberations at $92,637,516. When the pandemic hit, as everyone's aware, we went back and discussed with the select board that we thought we were going to face about a $6 million revenue shortfall and options to make it up, which I think we also briefly went over on Tuesday. The general fund budget that we had presented to the select board came out to be in discussions with some cuts. So what we did, just to give you an idea of the cuts that we made in the general fund budget, which is in Article 8, there was approximately $565,000 worth of unfilled positions in fiscal 20 that have been deemed non-essential to the current operations and the positions have not been eliminated. They have been defunded for fiscal 21. So if the departments felt in a future year they needed them, we would be able to have a discussion about them, but they've been essentially defunded for fiscal 21. There was also $162,000 in expense increase request positions that have been funded in the budget. Those have been defunded for the year as well.
Do you want us to wait and ask questions at the end, or you want us to ask questions as you go? What's easier for you, Brian?
However you would like to do it. I'm happy to do it either way, Chris.
Can I just ask on the open positions that were deemed non-essential?
Mm-hmm.
You said the number. I didn't get a chance to write it down. But, was that what? Do you know roughly, really roughly, what percentage that was of open positions? Meaning of open positions, how much progress did we make on that?
So there were in total 22 vacant positions that were actively, prior to COVID, being recruited. The elimination of the what were deemed non-essential was essentially 50% of that.
Okay, thank you.
So after that, we made those reductions in the Article 8. We had a discussion with the school. I think that previously mentioned and it's been reported that they agreed that they could manage a $500,000 reduction in the original appropriation to the school. The last piece that we made in the operating budget in Article 8 was it was a small change. We'd originally projected $367,000 in health insurance savings, but it ended up, we actually are going to realize based on all these changes, approximately $275,000, simply because a couple of the positions that were slated to be filled, that have been filled, that were deemed essential, the health insurance that we projected actually turned out to be not what was there. So to account for some of those changes, the actual savings that we reduced this budget by for health insurance was $275,000. So all told, it was right around it was originally projected at just under $2.2 million in savings, excuse me. It came in just under 2.1 million, is about $2,075,000 reduction, roughly thereabouts, when we did that. So the article that you have in front of you, I apologize. We actually did it. We initially presented it the original way that we had done it. Allie is working currently very feverishly to do a red line version that we had discussed so that it's very clear and easier, I guess, for the voting public to see where those changes have been. So what goes in the paper that we're going to send to go along with the warrant will have a red line version versus this. So that'll be the only change or difference. So what we're asking you to approve in Article 8 is a revised general fund budget of $90,599,500, of which $90,062,551,000 will be raised and appropriated from fiscal year 2021 tax levy and other general revenues of the town, and that $536,949 be transferred from free cash in the treasury of the town for one-time and operating expenses that are included in various departmental budgets. Now, how did we get to this? So as everybody recalls, in Tuesday, and then I had the discussion with the select board last night, throughout the entire budget process when we proposed the override for Island Home, given the uncertainty before the pandemic of whether it would pass the ballot and the annual town meeting vote, through everything, we had always left $3.1 million of levy capacity, which is inside the levy, as anticipated to be transferred there. Okay. In the event that the article passed at both the town meeting and the ballot, then we would have had that as unused levy capacity because we wouldn't have raised it. If that had failed, we would have simply had to have a special town meeting previously to allocate that money along with retained earnings. The discussion a week ago with the board was that they did not want us to use, if the ballot question were to pass, they did not want us to use the raise and appropriate option because it would immediately engage and start the override. So we have, as you'll see in Article 15, we're using free cash to balance that budget. And we're using that unused levy, the capacity that was originally reserved for Island Home is now being used here so that we're not taking over $6.5 million of free cash to fund the two budgets. So I'm certainly happy to entertain any other questions from any of the members. Or
I'm sure you've answered this probably to us in the past, but if the 6 million turns out to be overly conservative and it's not that bad, that just shows up as free cash next year?
It would, unless there was a large appetite to try to have a special town meeting to put back some of the changes, but absent that, it would simply just go into free cash automatically. Yes.
Thanks.
And Brian, doing this, I'm guessing you and I had a conversation, and I think it's helpful for the rest of FinCom to understand that this is frankly a pretty big bow wave we're pushing, and we're going to need significant corrective action next year in having to take this action this year.
There is definitely, it is definitely going to bring the discussion to a head because we're now essentially funding more than 50% of the operations of the Island Home with items that we typically try to stay away from funding. Yep. So we will have a gap next year unless unless things rebound and deliver at least $3.5 million in additional revenues somehow from the local estimated receipts in projections for fiscal 22. So, which I did explain or try to explain to the board last night, that this is really just delaying the conversation, and that question is still going to have to be addressed at some point. And that point most likely would be fiscal 22.
Okay, thank you.
Did anything move around inside the budget? I know there were some conversation at various board meetings where folks raised the notion of, hey, maybe our priorities have shifted in terms of where the needs are within, not in terms of net reduction. Was there anything that moved around from that?
There hasn't been a wholesale moving around of anything within the operating budget at this point, Chris, no.
Okay, thanks.
So Brian, it's a little bit difficult to do the motion without being able to see it. But unless you can clearly state it, and then one of the FinCom members can,
Sure.
I know you said it already, but I couldn't write it down fast enough.
I can read it to you if you would like.
Yeah, could you read us the motion? And
Absolutely.
before you do, the rest of FinCom, are you comfortable with Brian reading it and then one of you making the motion and then us voting on it now? Or do you want to wait, or do you need to see it?
It's,
in
I think,
black and white.
I think Ally did send it or upload it into the meeting invite in the calendars.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, it's in there.
So
See?
I'm happy to read it if you would like me to do that. That's fine.
Yeah, if you would, Brian, that'd be great. Because
Okay.
as you missed in the early part of the call that I was having with Peter, my technology skills are one step above Luddite. So
I'm happy to read it. And to meet these appropriations, the sum of $90,062,551 be raised and appropriated from the fiscal year 2021 tax levy and other general revenues of the town. And that $536,949 be transferred from free cash in the treasury of the town for one-time and operating expenses that are included in the various departmental budget. The budget unanimously recommended by the Nantucket School Committee for the school department, including the Nantucket Community School for fiscal 2021, is $31,846,642.
As printed.
perfect. Do we have a motion to adopt?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
By roll call, Peter Schaefer,
Yes.
Chris,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Denise, I. So moved.
Thank you very much.
Good work, Brian.
Thank you.
Yes, Brian.
Thank you very
Thank
much. So Article 15, Enterprise Fund Operations, Madam Chair.
Yes, please, Brian.
Okay. So there were a couple, originally this was only supposed to have to really deal with Ireland Home and the change. However, as everybody I think is aware from reading the newspapers, and I think they may have actually talked about it a little bit, the airport faced a very substantial and significant decline in their projections for revenues next year. And they did receive, as part of the CARES Act, $6.2 million. So because of the way we have to account for the CARES Act money, it looks a little crazy here, and we'll send you the new projection so that you can see how this is being done. But essentially, we have taken the airport budget down from $10,044,800 to $5,930,300, which is primarily is reductions in salary. Salaries went from $5,328,300 to $1,487,310. And their operating expenses went from $4,716,500 to $4,442,990. That gap is going to be funded by the CARES Act money. So we had to reduce the enterprise fund budget because the enterprise fund budget can only raise what will be actually expended through the user fees and everything. The CARES Act money, because it's a federal grant, is already appropriated and authorized by the receipt of the grant, and is managed in a separate account as required, because it will require additional federal audits as the year progresses. So that is the change for the airport. So Their budget has been reduced for this year to 5.930300. The airport manager and I have talked about what happens if, this continues to go on longer. There's an understanding that, they're going to have to put this money back at some point, and I'm sure there's going to be longer discussions about that. So that changes in the airport. Our island home, we haven't made any changes for. I really did try to look to see if we could make substantial revenue increases, because we do have some more private pay individuals, but given the potential fluctuation in the census there, I was a little reluctant to try to make any substantial changes, because things can change in an instant. So we have left their original anticipated revenues at the $3,767,818. We are using 1.5 million of their 1.620 million in retained earnings. And then we're balancing and closing the gap by transferring $3.5 million in free cash. So their budget remains the same as presented before at $8,767,818. Sewer's budget does not change from the $9,370,408. The only change that we made to sewer was we reduced the user fees and anticipated revenues by $200,000 and have increased the usage of retained earnings by that same $200,000. Sconset Water has had a reduction in they have not had a substantial expense or payroll reduction, but they have anticipated a decline in revenues. And on the sheet that we sent for Article 15, we have reduced their anticipated revenues to $753,046. Their budget was $927,268, which leaves $174,222 that we need to make up. And they have identified, and the Sconset Water Commission has approved the usage of retained earnings to fund that variance. Solid waste, there were no changes to the budget or the funding sources. They all remain the same. And then Wannacomet, there were a few minor changes within their budget based on some personnel changes that they had within that. They actually reduced their salary line by just over $38,000 based on some retirements they had and filling positions at a lower rate. And they took out some of their inventory and made some other changes to their expenses and have reduced them from $3,915,037 to $3,715,037. So their budget is come down by $260,000 from the original budget of $5,866,892 to a revised total of $5,628,103. We also made a revision to how we propose to fund this budget. They've seen a slight decline in the water usage as well. So they have reduced their anticipated revenues to $4,605,000. So in order to, we're going to have to make one small change here. Hold on. That doesn't. Okay, so retained earnings for the water company. Oh, I know what I'm doing. I'm looking at the wrong one. I'm sorry. $5,628,103. So yes, so they made a change of reducing revenues to $4,605,000, and we will be using retained earnings in the amount of $1,023,103 to balance that budget. And the Wannacomet Water Commission has also approved that change in recommendation. So all told, the funding sources do equal the recommended budget of $41,912,132. And just to echo a previous point that I made when talking about Article 8, using $3.5 million of free cash to fund the Our Island Home certainly does not really fall in line with the policies that we've put in place. We have discussed this with the rating agencies, and they know that we are using these additional reserves that we have to fund operating costs in fiscal 21. So they are fully aware of it and understand the plan. But it means that we have got to begin pretty much after the day after town meeting on working on a plan on what may happen for fiscal 22 so that we can not rely on these sources again for the next upcoming budget cycle.
Brian, do you get any sense from your rating agency people that we're not the only one in the boat rowing this way?
I get the sense that they think that this is happening to everybody, but I also get the sense that and it started before my tenure, but over the time that I've been here in the 6 years, we've worked really hard to build reserves that were stable, that would be able to be utilized in a catastrophic event of something like this. And
right.
It's always been part of the plan. So what
right.
we're doing isn't something we're springing on them now. It's been part of every presentation we've ever made to them. Even when they came to the island, we showed how it would help us. So it's something that they know. And given the high degree of liquidity that we have, I don't see that it's not something that I think in the short or medium term is going to have a dramatic impact on us. Obviously, if we don't figure a way to solve some of this, it could have a longer term impact, but I don't foresee an impact immediately or in the near term.
Thank you.
You're muted, Madam Chair.
Now I'm unmuted. There we go. Peter, any comments or questions?
No, I'm fine.
Chris?
No questions.
Stephen?
For me.
George?
All set.
Brian, I have a question or more of a comment. I am very concerned about the urgency to solve our island home, to really solve it. And because I think that was one of the beauties of the override, is we were highlighting to the town and to the taxpayers and to the voters that this organization needed this level of fiscal support in order to keep going. And I am very comfortable with what you proposed for this year. And I just wonder, how do we make it urgent on June 26th? Do you understand what I'm trying to
Absolutely.
get to?
I absolutely do. And I think that it's something that we do have to deal with sooner rather than later. And I think it's I think the first step was putting the override question and to fund it properly, because I think that's what we have to do. I can't, as I say, and I'm sure many people have been on the committee and hear me say this every year, I can't promise the town we're going to have 10 million in free cash next year. Just like I can't promise them we'll have $1.6 million in retained earnings for next year for our island home. So as we've seen, we were at 3.1 in the operating within the levy limit by the sheer nature of the fact that their retained earnings have been going down because we've been using it to fund operations. And it was a $900,000 drop on a year-over-year basis from July 1st of 18 to July 1st of 19, which the general fund would have had to pick up, and ultimately is picking up through free cash. So I think that I know that the chairwoman of the select board last night did mention the fact that this is a short-term solution and that we have to work on this, fixing this funding the way that we're funding it. So from my perspective, I don't think that it's something that is lost on everybody. And I think that doing it this way certainly helps in not increasing the tax rate at a difficult time for everybody, and gives us the opportunity to work judiciously and effectively over the next 6 months to try to come up with a way that solves it and works to solve the problem of the issue. I shouldn't call it a problem, but solve the issue of funding it with sources that are stable and solely are able to be funded for that purpose.
I'm wondering if, and this is just wondering out loud, is it prudent in our motion to make a comment to say we concur and, motion to adopt what is being proposed, and we still, we understand that at this time, in light of COVID, that the override has been taken off the town meeting discussion. However, we strongly encourage this this discussion to start again on June 26th. I mean, you won't phrase it that way, obviously off the top. I'm not Joe Grouse. I can't do this off the top of my head nearly as well as Joe can. So, but does it make sense? I would be curious to hear from my other colleagues, starting with Stephen.
Yeah, the impact of that comment isn't going to be felt immediately. I don't think we're, we're actively discouraging attendance at town meeting, and I think people are going to, tune out our recommendations and comments maybe for that reason. But I do think it'll be good to have it on record and published somewhere that we can refer back to in the run up to next year's town meeting.
Okay, George.
I support that sort of an addendum to the motion, and I think it's a very wise thing to do. And I'm not exactly sure, not having been on board long enough, but I think the town is, it ought to have a marketing campaign between now and the fall special town meeting, and for next year's as well, just to have, make sure everybody's feet are to the fire.
Thank you, George. Chris?
I'm okay either way. Have it or not have it. I mean, I'm fine with having it if you want to have it.
Okay. Peter?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I think we should have it. I think, it's no surprise to anybody, the situation that the town's in and the situation we're going to be in going forward. I think that if any time you want to take a chance on something, this is the time to do it. I mean, if we need to make major adjustments in that tax rate, I think you want to do it now. You don't want to do it a year from now. So, I think that the warning should be there, and, the reaction should be sooner than later.
Yeah, I mean, I fully comply or concur with the select board and town administration's preference to, make this as easy as possible, this town meeting, so that we don't have extended time altogether and there's not extended debates. So Brian, I can work with you and frankly, Joe Grouse, who's the master at writing all comments, offline to just say, we'll motion to approve with a subsequent comment to come in respect of solving the Our Island Home funding shortfall for fiscal 22, yeah, or something like that. As you can see, again, off the top of my head, not so good.
No, that's fine. I mean, I think that I think that the easiest way is that motion to recommend the enterprise fund budgets in the amount of whatever the number is. I get a look on the paper again, and then you can add a comment below it, like we have done with the which was done in the original, and that
exactly
able for the town manager to include it in the materials that are sent along with the warrant, so people would see it.
Okay, so we can go ahead with the motion now. I'm comfortable with that. If the rest of FinCom is, in which case we need someone to. It was $41,912,932. That one I got written down fast enough.
It's actually, Madam Chair, it's $41,912,132.
Oh, I got you an extra $800 there. You would have gone to town with that, Ryan. That extra
Island Home might have been able to use it. We'll hold it for next year.
Good.
Motion to adopt at that amount.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Peter Schaefer,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Stephen,
He's muted.
I think
Stephen.
he's frozen.
I think he is frozen.
Yeah, you're right.
He's probably
Either that or very bored.
Right.
no, he's frozen. Somebody should start singing "Let It Go." No, not that. Denise, I. Well, we have four out of the 5 here, so we have a majority.
Okay.
Excellent.
So the only other articles that are still outstanding, Madam Chair, is Article 6 and Article 17, which are the 2 articles relative to fiscal 20 budget transfers.
Yeah.
Ally is working extremely diligently, and we're working on a bunch of different paths to understand and work with the department heads on what the spending might look like to ensure that we don't have any additional any transfers, or we make sure that we have the time to put them in should we need them. One budget transfer that will be coming that I can just tell you about now, because I have discussed this with the town manager, is we're going to be transferring $400,000 from certified free cash into what's known as the COVID fund, which is to receive all of the CARES Act money that the town may get, which already we do have $998,000, which is the first 25% of the allocation to the town that the Commonwealth has made available. We have to have a separate fund established. So we've established one, and due to the timing of FEMA, we're going to ask to transfer $400,000 into that, along with applying for additional CARES Act money, which we will be using over a 2 fiscal year cycle. And there may be some additional transfers for, we do have to transfer some money into sewer because their revenue is going to be slightly fall a little short, partially because people have not been able to connect as fast because there's not enough contractors on the island to do all of the sewer connections for permits that have been pulled. So, but we are working with the departments, and there's probably going to be some salaries that have to move for some hiring changes that happen. So we have all of that that we are working through, and the goal in asking you to delay acting on those until the meeting on the 23rd was to ensure that we captured everything, so we don't have to do many transfers, if any, at before July 15th. So those are the last two that we'll be presenting to you on the 23rd before the moderators conference.
That's fine, Brian. Thank you. Okay. Is there any other questions from, let me just go around again. Peter, anything else
Nope.
from you?
Nope.
And Chris,
No.
George?
None?
So Brian, many thanks to you and Ally for this preparation. It's excellent.
Yes.
We realize it's a very difficult time, and you're doing an excellent job, and thank you for your support. It's really, really great.
Allie did the yeoman's work to put all of these articles back together for us. So I do want to thank her for all the effort that she put in to do this.
Excellent.
Thank
Good.
you, Alex.
Okay. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor, Peter?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Denise, yes, thank you. And also too, thanks to FinCom for being available today and being flexible. I know right now it's a little bit of we need to not jump through hoops, but we need to be quite flexible. And I appreciate that you all were able to do that at short notice. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Enjoy
Okay,
the
bye.
rest of the afternoon. Thanks, everyone. And Brian,
Bye-bye.
just give me a call when you have
I
time.
will. Yes.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.